33 playable characters, 3 classes, 8 maps, and 3 game modes. It's safe to say that Marvel Rivals has a lot of content, and yeah, it's safe to say that it's doing decently well for itself. And that's not even considering the fact that this is season 0 of the game. The first official season hasn't even started yet, and we already have a stacked roster of beloved Marvel characters, and one of which being Moon Knight. However, Moon Knight hasn't exactly had the best track record on Marvel Rivals, as most Moon Knight players don't maximize his kit, and may not truly understand the full extent of his power. So today, I'm here to simply simplify his kit, how to maximize all of his abilities and combos, and in general, how to Moon Knight. Out of the 3 classes in Marvel Rivals, Moon Knight finds himself in the Duelist class, a class that acts as a heavy damage dealer hero that simultaneously is tasked with keeping the enemy at bay. However, often have a lower HP level. Moon Knight's primary weapon is the Crescent Dart, which allows him to simultaneously throw 3 darts in the direction that he's currently facing. The darts can deal massive damage, if they are used to their full potential, but we'll get to that later. Another thing to know about the Crescent Darts is that they actually ricochet off of other enemies when you hit an enemy with one, allowing you to deal an insane amount of damage with just one throw, and in some cases it can even hit the same target twice. Moon Knight's secondary is the Moonblade. It's essentially a bigger and heavier damage dealing version of the Crescent Darts. If you hit an enemy with the Moonblade, it can also ricochet between enemies and deal an insane amount of damage, allowing for key plays and possibly comboing enemies with the Crescent Darts and the Moonblade, or use it as a finishing move to an enemy to ensure a quick and clean finish before they take cover or heal up. The Moonblade also has a 7-second cooldown, allowing it to be used relatively often in combat. But this next ability is when Moon Knight's kit really excels. That ability is the Ancient Ankh. Essentially, when you throw down the Ankh, it will pull enemies towards the center of the radius and deal a little damage. At face value, this may seem like an incredibly weak move. However, the primary use of the Ankh isn't to deal damage with it. Interestingly enough, if you throw down the Ankh and there are enemies inside of its radius and you throw the darts or the blade at the center key of the Ankh, they will ricochet and hit the enemy, allowing for massive team wiping plays without even having to aim at the enemy directly. And you can also have 2 active Ankhs at once in combat. We also have Moon Knight's melee attack, that being the Triple Eclipse. It's an okay ability, it deals less damage than the darts, and it's slower than the darts, and this ability doesn't have a ricochet mechanic, restricting Moon Knight's effectiveness and utility even more for close range encounters. Moon Knight isn't just restricted to damage dealing though, as he also has many movement mechanics, such as a glider, where once you gain enough height, whether that's jumping off of a ledge or a building, you can deploy a slow moving but effective glider. He also has a double jump mechanic where once you leap into the air, you can press the jump button again and gain even more height. You can also deploy your glider after a double jump, allowing you for incredible mobility. However, the double jump has a 7-second cooldown, so use it wisely. And finally, Moon Knight has the Moonlight Hook, which acts as a grapple. While the range isn't far, it does act quickly once it makes contact with a surface. However, you can't use the grapple to gain momentum. But when you use the grapple, it allows you to gain some height in the air, where once more you can deploy your Night Glider. And finally, we have Moon Knight's ultimate ability, the Hand of Khonshu, which deals a massive amount of damage in a small period of time within a large radius. This ultimate won't be one-shotting anyone really, but it does have multiple uses, which we'll talk about in a minute. But now that you know all of Moon Knight's abilities and what they do, let's get to how to Moon Knight. Okay, starting off, most Moon Knight players that I've played against or play with absolutely suck at using his darts and blade. And in a hero shooter like Marvel Rivals, you can't afford not understanding your abilities. So, we'll start off simple here. The Crescent Darts and Blade are meant to be heavy damage dealing weapons that are good in an enemy filled dense part of combat, but they are not so strong when you're taking on someone in a solo setting, or someone like Iron Man or Storm. Simply put, flying characters are a pain to fight against as Moon Knight, due to the darts and how they move. Most Moon Knight players try to directly hit their opponents, and there's nothing wrong with that inherently, but when you are facing against a flying hero, you want to use that Ankh and ricochet your darts and blade off of that to hit flying opponents. Or even better, get high ground and start chopping down the flying enemy's health. Moon Knight is a phenomenal character at getting and using angles and cutting off the opponent, So use that to maximize your potential. Understanding Moon Knight's Ankh can be difficult, but simply put, coverage is key. Moon Knight relies heavily on the enemy team sticking together to maximize all of his abilities, and to keep the enemy team sticking together, you have to use his Ankhs. Luckily, you can have 2 active at once at any given time, so as Moon Knight, you have to place these Ankhs in enemy dense locations in the game, whether that's at an access point for a payload, a capturing point, or anything of the sort. You must place Ankhs efficiently, as your whole game and playstyle relies on the Ankhs and where they are located. But they can also be destroyed by the enemy, so make sure to place them in efficient locations. In a lot of games, I always see a Moon Knight getting destroyed by a Black Panther or an Iron Fist because they are trying to directly hit the opponent with the darts or the blade. But they are using their abilities all wrong. Instead of trying to directly hit this super fast moving target, place an Ankh down and hit the Ankh with your abilities to ensure that you take the enemy out and that you hit all of your shots. Something to know with Moon Knight's mobility is that it's not meant to be used the way you think it is. Let me explain. While yes, the double jump is a good way to get out of a close range encounter, the fact is that it doesn't get you far enough away from an enemy to ensure safety. That's because that's not what the purpose of the double jump or the grapple are for. They are meant for gaining high ground and getting vantage points that are close to the combat but separate you from being directly in the war zone. This is because as Moon Knight, you want these vantage points to deal high levels of damage and to block enemies off. And with these vantage points, it's a lot easier to place your Ankhs in meaningful locations that you can always hit directly to ensure that you keep the enemy team at bay. And as Moon Knight, you should rarely ever be on the ground. You want to stick to rooftops, balconies, or any high points on the map. And if you ever get in trouble, as a last-ditch effort to escape, grapple the ground at your feet and you will be launched up into the air to possibly glide away to gain height or heal up. And as Moon Knight, height is key, and the glider helps with that, because as Moon Knight, you want to be able to reach those high points as quickly and efficiently as possible. And even though the glider doesn't move fast, it doesn't fall slowly either, allowing mobility from rooftop to be a breeze. Using the Hand of Khonshu is more difficult than you think. While yes, it covers a large area, you need to use all of your abilities to maximize this ultimate, because if used correctly, this can wipe out a whole entire enemy team in a fraction of a second. The first step is that you must use the Ankh, as it will pull all enemies in the area to one condensed spot. Then you must activate the ultimate onto the Ankh where the enemies are, and during this, you must be on a high ground or high point, at the very least, at an accessible point to the Ankh. Once the ultimate has been placed, you should throw everything you have at the Ankh or at the enemies. Darts, blades, and all of the above. Whatever you can use to deal as much damage as possible, do it. But you must make sure that there are at least 3 enemies in the area to justify using this ultimate, as it takes a long time to recharge, and we want to be able to maximize its potential. However, if needed, you can use the ultimate as almost a blockade, where enemies can pass through it to get to their main objective. You can stop the enemy in their tracks from getting to a payload or a capture point to ensure that your team captures the objective or halts the enemy's progress. And finally, team-ups. As Moon Knight, you are pretty much restricted to only dealing damage to the enemy, and blocking off their access points to vantage points, not allowing you to heal up and only being restricted to 250 HP. So a few good heroes to have on your team would be Adam Warlock and Jeff the Shark as strategists. But a major standout is Cloak and Dagger, as when you have a Cloak and Dagger present on your team, as Moon Knight, you are able to turn invisible within a certain radius, to truly maximize your vantage points and effectiveness for hitting the enemies hard without them knowing where you are. Now that we've gone over how to Moon Knight, we gotta figure out whether he's the character for you or not. I will be basing the character in Marvel Rivals off of 5 key points: effectiveness at their role, user-friendliness, teamwork, versatility, and capability. Starting off with effectiveness at their role, Moon Knight is in the duelist category, which is reserved for heavy damage dealing characters who are good at pushing the enemy team back and weakening their numbers. I feel like Moon Knight excels at this due to his high damage dealing abilities, as well as his effectiveness in combat. So for effectiveness at their role, Moon Knight will get a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we have user friendliness. Now, Moon Knight at first glance may seem easy to play, but most players have no idea how to play him, and it really shows. More often than not, when I play against a Moon Knight and I look at their team stats, he's usually the one who brought the whole team down and did the worst out of them all. And even when I have a Moon Knight teammate, it's even worse. They straight up mess up our team, and based off of what I've seen and how people rarely know how to play him, I'm going to give him a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The user friendliness is just not there. For teamwork, I'll give him a 1 out of 5 stars. I mean, he can't heal anyone, he can't shield anyone, he can't really do much to directly impact your teammates, but he makes up for that in holding the opposing team off and comboing well with other characters' attacks. For versatility, I'll give him a 3.5 out of 5 stars. People are just using his mobility wrong and they are paying for it. People are complaining that it's slow, but it's not meant to be fast. It's just that most players are using his mobility wrong and need to get the idea through their head that Moon Knight isn't meant to be a boots on the ground character. And for capability, I'll give him a 5 out of 5 stars. As a Moon Knight, you have so much potential and can really put the work in to help save your team and recover a win. You just need to take these tips to heart to unlock that potential. Overall, I would give Moon Knight a 4 out of 5 stars. But what do you think of Moon Knight Marvel Rivals? Let me know down in the comments section below. And big thank you to all of our wonderful channel members. Your support means the world to me, and on that note, let's get to today's shoutout, which is none other than the man, Jack Big Bus. If you don't know who this legend is, boy are you missing out. Jack makes primarily Fortnite related content, where he addresses all things from OG Fortnite to Fortnite bot problems, to even the issue with big Fortnite content creators and much more. So please go check out his channel, link will be in the description. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, have a lovely night.